In conversation with Adria Cruz Tabor, Adria grew up in several Latin American countries reading magic realism novels like Gabriel Garcia Marquez' 100 Years of Solitude. For this reason, her style of writing follows magic realism style and history from the Latino perspectives. And on today's episode of Photo Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to have on the show today, Andrea Cruz Tabor. Welcome on the show, Adria.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for having me.
absolutely. I'm quite excited to have you on the show today. Quite lovely. We're going to be talking about your book that I found to be quite amazing when I read through it on the internet and Amazon. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, Hadra, I need to first say that I found the description page of your novel, Love's Rebirth, a Tejana story on Amazon to be quite compelling. And I would like you to tell us a bit about how the book came to be. What inspired you to write Love's Rebirth, and how did you come with that title name even for a book?
Well, when I moved to Texas, I started I started thinking about this story. So I
Mm,
had been thinking about it for 30 years or so before I put it on paper.
wow.
Um, what happened was after my husband passed away
Mm,
in 19, we had COVID on the 2020. And during COVID, I was able to sit down and put it to put it to paper. My story, this story
mm,
that I wrote, and I did. In doing that, I did a lot. Had to do a lot of research in Texas,
mm,
um, but I lived in a college town, and the professors there helped me a lot with the research. And I was interested in the history from the Mexicans' point of view instead of the U.S. norteños or what they call at that time, it was the 13 colonies.
mm,
So the U.S. was like 13 colonies at the time when the story takes place.
wow.
And it was the struggle between Mexico and the U.S., Mexico and Texas. So I found it interesting, and I found that a lot of the writing was just done from the point of view of the U.S. citizens that had
Mm,
come from the north, the colonies, and not much at all was written from in fiction, that is, from the
mm.
Mexican American point of view. So that's what the book is about.
Oh, wow. I love your short description of it. It sounds to me to be quite amazing, quite lovely, and to me, a beautiful way of becoming a writer. Lovely introduction into becoming an author. So thank you so much for letting us know a bit about how Love Rebirth, a Tijana story, came to be. Thank you so much. And I would love to move forward a bit now. For the sake of readers who haven't read the book yet, and of course, without giving much information away, could we have a
Yeah.
sneak of what we had expect in terms of themes and subject lines picking up the book, and perhaps three areas of interest in the book relating to its
Mhm.
genre?
Sure. Well, Tejana is the name of Texas Mexican descent.
Oh,
Tejanos and Tejanas. And it's about a girl that grows up during that period when the Texas became a nation. It was
mm,
separated from Mexico. Then it was taken over by the U.S.,
wow,
annexed to the U.S., and the United States had a war with Mexico. She's living through all of this, and she has a very strong spiritual background.
mm,
Therein, I take the magic realism part into it. So
yeah,
it's a combination of spiritualism and magic,
wow,
and so she is able to retain her autonomy as far as her culture, traditions.
Mm,
etc. And her language, which was very important because the language was being, I mean, their culture was being assimilated
mm.
by
Oh,
the
wow.
Anglo culture. It's a struggle. She lives
Mm,
through that. She loses her parents. She loses her foster family eventually too. And but she's a strong
wow.
and very well educated because her step parents were very well educated.
Mm.
Um, and she, comes through okay. But it's just about how she goes through it,
Oh,
and
wow.
the history. So you have history, you have romance, and you have, of course, spirituality.
Oh, wow. I
The three
love that.
aspects.
History, romance, and spiritualism sounds quite amazing. My three may mostly interested, genre in that you've got imbibed into one novel. Sounds quite amazing to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd also like to ask you, Hadra, what do you think makes this book to be quite different from other books about Texas? What makes it different from other books in this
Mhm.
category? You'd like to share?
Well, in the early 20th century, like 1910,
Mm.
there were a couple of, maybe three books that were written from the Texas Mexican point of view,
Point of
like
view.
I
Wow.
mentioned before, but they were not published. They were printed. It was like academia type stuff.
Mm. Oh.
So, but in 1990, those
Mm.
three books were published for the public. So it took a long time, and it's still not many books of fiction are written from the Tejano or the Texas Mex point of view.
Wow.
So this is one of those few.
Mm.
My book is one of the few that it's written in that style. You hear, I mean, we had a lot of stories about the old West, and Western stories, cowboys, etc.
Yeah.
Um, all written from the Anglo point of view.
Mm.
And so the Tex-Mex, what we call Tex-Mex, at the time it was called Tejanos, uh, were kind of like a subservient society below the Anglo, so they weren't given much importance. A lot of the Mexicans, of course, were killed, or Tex-Mex, were killed by the Texas Rangers.
Mm.
So there was a lot of animosity against the Rangers. But in the popular version, the popular stories that everybody hears, the
Yeah.
Rangers were great heroes.
Oh,
They,
wow.
they were not, whereas to the Mexicans, they were like the enemy.
Mm. Oh, wow. That is such an amazing one to me, really. That is so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. At least we get to know
Sure.
how it's different, what the similarities it has, and how you can compare and contrast it with other books about Texas. Thank you so much for sharing. And now I would like us to go into talking about readers' feedbacks. Hadra, one of the most interesting things to me as a writer is to listen to readers' feedbacks. And you may want to agree with me that one of the things that make literature to be complex in its entirety is the fact that it can be interpreted in different ways by different
Mhm.
readers based on their opinions. Sometimes the readers might get the message intended by the author. Sometimes they might be close to getting it. Sometimes they might be far from getting it. And most times they might hilariously misunderstand the entire message. As interestingly fun as it sounds to me, I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your works differently than you intended? How does it make you feel?
Well, there's two aspects to it.
Mm,
The readers that enjoy the book, it's wonderful.
yeah,
But people have their own opinions, and you can't get upset if they don't like it. That's their opinion, right?
yeah,
But A lot of times they, like I've had people, because of the spiritual aspect of the book,
Yeah.
there are a lot of spiritual discussions in the book, but you have to realize that it's not just magic realism, but it's just a form of getting people to think about their religious beliefs. It's just
Yeah.
food for thought, food for thought.
Mm,
And there's no reason to think that the book is trying to convert anybody.
mm,
It's just giving them some food for thought. There is one little point that I made about an ancient mantra that's been used around the world, and this is real. This was a real aspect of the book,
oh,
brought up in the book, and it's the word hue, which has been used throughout centuries by mankind of different religions. It doesn't have a denomination, and it's used for meditation. And I bring that
mm,
up in the book, so anybody can use it. It's a gift.
mm.
But as far as trying to convert, that has been a problem that people think, oh, well, I don't believe that. Well, it's not meant for you to believe that. you know.
Yeah. I love your take on that. And I love the fact that you mentioned the spiritual aspect. But sometimes it got me thinking what people don't really like. I mean, yeah, it's not safe. It's all about spirituality because we have other teams imbibing it. But yeah, most people always have an issue with spiritual stuff, which to me, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why you always have an issue with spiritual stuff because this is actually the reality. But we understand the fact that we cannot force people to believe what they don't believe in. Neither can
Mhm.
we force them to accept what they don't want to accept. Yeah. So it's all with everyone born with their own opinion, with their own perspective, with their own ideas. And yeah, even sometimes when people interpret your works, it's because we think, well, I never intended it that way, but that's quite amazing to hear your feedback about that. Thank you so much for sharing, things like this.
I enjoy writing the dialogues where
Mm,
people discuss spirituality because they show different points of view, you know,
yeah,
and that's the whole idea,
yeah,
that freedom to discuss
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Now, I'd like us to dive a bit much now into how your inspirations and ideas come to be. As a person myself, I've always been fascinated and taken aback by how authors, especially novelists like yourself, would sit down and craft sentences, bring words together in a way that sentence come together to make paragraph, and paragraph comes together to make pages, and pages come together to make chapters, and chapters coming together to make an adventure, big novel, interesting one like you've just shown to the camera initially. And this always leaves me thinking, how exactly did they get the ideas to pull these words together, to craft these sentences, this paragraph, these chapters, these pages, and this amazing novel? And now, as far as writing is concerned, I'd like to ask you to Hadria, how do you get the inspirations and ideas to craft your works and write your books? Where did they come from?
Yeah, I've been writing short stories and poems since I was young.
Wow.
Uh, but I like to look at the world from a real point of view. I don't
Mm,
write fantasy, even though the book has magic realism. It is realism. It's
mm,
magical things in a realistic way.
mm,
Um, I like. I have written stories about friends that things that happen to friends, things that have happened to my family. So I get an inspiration from just people's actions, what people do, how they react,
mm.
and it just triggers, like a prompt, and I start writing it.
Yeah,
But I also, when I get serious about writing, I do a meditation first.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I do. I use the hue and just clear my mind, and just thoughts just come, you know.
yeah.
And it's an enjoyable thing for me.
It is.
Right now, I write a blog That's what I've been doing lately.
It is. I love your take on that, actually. It sounds to be quite amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And now, apart from Love Rebirth, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on? And if you have a copy of Love Rebirth there, I'd like you to show it to the camera
Yeah.
just so we can see what it looks like.
Let's see, is that clear?
Beautiful cover you've got in there. Would you like to talk about the making of the cover before we go to the next question?
The circle of stones
Yeah?
is the main story, really,
Oh,
um, because it's a portal where the spiritual masters can come through the town to the town. And so it's an important part of the story, and that's why it's on the cover.
that's interesting.
I haven't sat down to start another novel. Like I said, this one took 30 years. Who knows?
Oh,
But I do write short stories, and I'm writing a lot monthly on my blog, and that's on my website, which is just my name, Adria Cruz Tabor,
mm,
www.adriacruztabor.com. And there's a monthly blog. Like this month, I had a story about the portals, which is part of the book.
mm,
And it was appropriate because, this is in the United States. We celebrate Halloween, and the
yeah,
portals are where people, past relatives, can come through to this world.
yeah.
So about that, I write about Latin America, their cultures, the food, anything having to do with Latinos in the United States and in Latin America, because that's
Wow,
my background. So it's what I know.
that's
And
amazing.
I write a monthly blog on that. I also have facilitated a workshop for writers.
Mm,
Um, I did a series of workshops last year, and
yeah.
we're going to probably continue them this year again on writing your memoirs. So I help people write their family memoirs. A lot of it has to do with researching their ancestry
Mm,
because there's a large population of Mexican Americans in Texas,
yeah.
and they like to record what happened to their parents or ancestors when they were here, when the United States took over. They have all that. There's a lot of oral and family stories that haven't been written down
Mm,
or said. And
yeah.
so we're trying to compile that in our town. We have a Hispanic Cultural Center, and
Mm.
that's where I do the memoirs, teach the workshops, do all
Oh,
that
wow.
stuff. So I get involved with that,
That's
helping
ama
others write.
that's amazing, really. I enjoy you talking about that. And I love listening to you talking about this. This is such an amazing one. Beautiful to get to know you've got a lot ongoing. Well done, I'd say.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I know
I,
it's a lot
I
of work involved in writing a book. It's not an easy job, you know.
No, it's not. It took me forever. It took me the year to do it, and then
Imagine,
another
yeah.
year to do the editing,
Wow.
formatting, all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then the publishing. And I decided because of my age,
Hmm.
I didn't want to go traditionally because tradition you have to send query letters and wait till somebody picks it up.
Hmm.
So I decided I'd publish it myself and avoid all
Yeah.
that time consuming time. Um,
Yeah.
so that's where I'm at. But I'm not going to, probably not going to, even though they've asked me to do a sequel.
Oh.
It's a lot of work. I don't know if I have the time to do that.
Oh, wow.
But I enjoy doing other writing works.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's quite fun to know. Thank you. I'd also like to ask you, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with writing and publishing a book? What do you advise people in this category?
Well, you get together with other writers, That's the
Mm.
best thing. We have, it's like a support group. We get together and we have writing time.
Yeah.
Okay. Even
Yeah.
if we're not talking to each other, it's the community thing. We encourage each other and discuss your writing with other people.
Mm.
It's always kind of scary to share what you've written, you know.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to do that. But after, if you're in a group where you know the people and they're supporting you, it's helps.
Yeah.
So that's one way. Also, if you practice any type of meditation,
Yeah.
like I do, to help you with that, that's also another way.
Mm.
And read. My gosh, you can't write unless you read. You have to
Yeah.
read a lot and
Yeah.
enjoy the genre that you read. I read a lot of historical fiction, which is what I
Absolutely.
like.
Absolutely. You have to read a lot. That is very important
I
and
can see by all
necessary.
the books behind you. And I think it's wonderful that you have a program that involves international writers because I've just been to programs where it's mostly Texans or sometimes it's some of the US, but this is wonderful that you have an international audience.
Mm. Oh wow, thank you so much. I mean, I've enjoyed this conversation over and over today. It's quite fun and quite amazing and quite lively as well. Thank you so much for your lovely answers to
Oh,
the
you're
questions and your
welcome.
suggestion, your educative responses. It sounds to me to be quite amazing and very great. Thanks, Amelia. Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up for today, I'd like to ask you, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know? Is there anything?
Well, you can follow a little more about I write about different aspects of the book in my website.
Mm,
So every month there might be something about a different, part of history has to do with the book or about Latin America in general. So everybody and everyone is welcome to log into my or check my website.
mm,
And I'd love to hear comments. And if
yeah.
anybody has questions about any particular time in history or about Latin America in general,
Mm,
please contact me through the website. I would love that. I would love to hear from you all.
yeah. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Adria Cruz Tabor books directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on our website and also another platform. I also left a link to our social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Adria, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. I must say it's more than awesome, quite great, quite lovely and very interesting having a lovely conversation with you around your beautiful title, Lost Rebirth. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Peter. And I love your program.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as well.